Hare Krishna! Welcome back to Shravanam Diaries. We are continuing to read the book called On the Way to Krishna by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Jai. So page number 13. One of the purposes for Lord Krishna's descent or appearance in this material world is to extinguish the fire of material existence for all living entities by setting forth the Dharma. Dharma yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijam yaham paritranaya sadunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Quote, whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself, in order to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. I advent myself millennium after millennium. Unquote, Bhagavad Gita 4.7-8. In this verse, the word dharma is used. This word has been translated into English in various ways. Sometimes it is translated as faith. But according to Vedic literature, dharma is not a kind of faith. Faith may change, but dharma cannot be changed. The liquidity of water cannot be changed. If it is changed, if for instance water becomes solid, it is actually no longer in its constitutional position. It is existing under a certain qualifying condition. Our dharma, or constitutional position, is that we are part and parcel of the Supreme. And this being the case, we have to dovetail or subjugate our consciousness to the Supreme. This position of transcendental service to the Supreme Whole is being misused due to material contact. Service is implicit in our constitutional position. Everyone is a servant, and no one is a master. Everyone is serving someone, somehow or other. Although the president may be the chief executive of the state, still he is serving the state. And when his services are no longer required, the state disposes him. To think to oneself, I am the master of all I survey, is called Maya, illusion. Thus, in material consciousness, our service is being misused under various designations. When we can become free from these designations, that is to say, when the dust has been cleared from the mirror of the mind, we will be able to see ourselves in our actual position as eternal servants of Krishna. One should not think that his service in the material world and his service in the spiritual atmosphere are the same. We may shudder to think, oh, after liberation, will I still be a servant? This is because we have experienced that being a servant in the material world is not very enjoyable. But transcendental service is not like this. In the spiritual world, there is no difference between the servant and the master. Just take a moment and have a deep thought about it. Really. In the transcendental world, in the spiritual world, transcendental service is not like this. There is no difference between the servant and the master. That's why devotional service is so rare and it's the greatest blessing. Here, of course, there is distinction. But in the absolute world, everything is one. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, we can see that Krishna has taken the position of servant, as the chariot driver of Arjuna. In his constitutional position, Arjuna is the servant of Krishna. But in behavior, we can see that sometimes the Lord becomes the servant of the servant. So we should be careful not to carry materialistic ideas into the spiritual realm. Whatever we have materially experienced is but a perverted reflection of things in spiritual life. When our constitutional position or dharma is deteriorated due to the contaminations of matter, the Lord Himself comes as an incarnation or sends some of His confidential servitors. Lord Jesus Christ called Himself the Son of God, and so is representative of the Supreme. Okay. Similarly, Muhammad identified himself as a servant of the Supreme Lord. Thus, whenever there is a discrepancy in our constitutional position, the Supreme Lord either comes Himself or sends His representative to inform us of the real position of the living entity. So Lord Jesus Christ was the representative, Muhammad was the representative, the servant. Therefore, one should not make the mistake of thinking that Dharma is a created faith. In its proper sense, Dharma cannot be divorced from the living entity at all. It is to the living entity what sweetness is to sugar, or saltiness is to salt, or solidity is to stone, and in no case can it be cut off. The Dharma of the living entity is to serve, and we can easily see that every living entity has the tendency to serve himself or others. How to serve Krishna, how to disentangle ourselves from materialistic service, how to attain Krishna consciousness and become free from material designations, is all taught as a science by Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. The word sadhu in the verse quoted above, beginning Paritranaya sadhunam, refers to a holy man or a saintly person. A saintly person is tolerant, very kind to everyone, is a friend to all living entities, is no one's enemy, and is always peaceful. There are 26 basic qualifications for a holy man, and in the Bhagavad Gita we find that Sri Krishna himself gives the following verdict. Apichet suduracharo bhajate mamananyabhak sadureva samantavyah samyag vyavasito hisah. Quote, even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. Unquote, Gita 9.30. On the mundane platform, what is morality for one person is immorality for another, and what is immorality for one person is morality for another. According to the Hindu conception, the drinking of wine is immoral, whereas in the Western world, wine drinking is not considered immoral but is a common thing. So morality is dependent on time, place, circumstance, social position, etc. There is, however, a sense of morality and immorality in all societies. In this verse, Krishna points out that even if one is engaged in immoral acts, but at the same time is fully in Krishna consciousness, he is to be considered a sadhu or a saint. In other words, although a person may have some immoral habits due to his past association, if he is engaged fully in Krishna consciousness, these habits are not to be considered important. Whatever the case, if one becomes Krishna conscious, he will gradually be purified and will become a sadhu. As one progresses in executing Krishna consciousness, his bad habits diminish and he attains to saintly perfection. In this regard, there's a story of a thief who went on a pilgrimage to a holy town, and en route he and the other pilgrims stopped to rest overnight at an inn. Being addicted to stealing, the thief began making plans to steal other pilgrims' baggage, but he thought, I'm going on a pilgrimage, so it doesn't seem appropriate that I should steal this baggage. No, I shall not do it. Nonetheless, due to his habit, he could not keep his hands off the baggage. So he picked up one person's bag and placed it in another place, and then another person's bag and placed it elsewhere. He spent all night placing different bags in different places, and his conscience bothered him so that he could not take anything from them. In the morning, when the other pilgrims awoke, they looked around for their bags and couldn't find them. There was a great row, and eventually, one by one, they began to find these various bags in various places. After they were all found, the thief explained, Gentlemen, I'm a thief by occupation. Being that I am habituated to stealing at night, I wanted to steal something from your bags, but I thought that since I'm going to this holy place, it is not possible to steal. So I may have rearranged the baggage, but please excuse me. What a highly cultured thief. This is the characteristic of a bad habit. He doesn't want to commit theft anymore. And because he is habituated, sometimes he does. Thus, Krishna says that one who has decided to refrain from his immoral habits and make progress in Krishna consciousness is to be considered a sadhu, even if out of past habit or by chance he yields to his fault. In the next verse, we find that Sri Krishna says, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvachantim nigayachati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhaktah pranashyati. Quote, he quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Unquote, Bhagavad Gita 9.31. Haribol! Jai, we're going to stop here for today, but the topic is really fantastic that we read today. It really gives us a lot of hope, and it's really compassionate, right? Because I remember one letter Prabhupada, he was replying to one lady who made a complaint about his disciples, that they were a bit too, not rough, but they spoke a little too strict according to philosophy. And she found it a bit rude. So Srila Prabhupada said that, these boys, they joined Krishna consciousness, and it would be utopian to think that they will be perfect overnight. So it is a bit utopian to think that just because somebody has started spiritual progress, there will be absolutely no faults and mistakes. But as Sri Krishna tells his servant Arjuna to boldly declare that devotee of the Lord never perishes. Jai, even if he's not yet perfect. Haribol, thank you so much for tuning in today. The link to this book is in the description, and we shall see you next time. Hare Krishna.